Asobo are perhaps one of the best studios out there when it comes to laying out a roadmap for upcoming content, improvements and changes. Recently, the Microsoft Flight Simulator devs have made a few changes on how this information is presented in an attempt to make things clearer. However, not everything is rosy. There are some significant problems with the Microsoft Flight Simulator right now, as well as perhaps some issues with how Asobo are communicating about them. So let's take a look at all of this. Before we take a look at the new feedback snapshots, I want to briefly talk about the issues caused with the previous versions of them. Now, each roadmap and feedback snapshot contains release windows next to specific features, updates and fixes. For the most part, this has worked very well ever since Asobo started using them. However, recently there has been a number of issues. The most notable one is perhaps in relation to Sim Update 3. Many people, including me, long expected the Sim Update 3 to contain the long-awaited updates to and improvements to Garmin G1000 and G3000 systems. We can see on the old snapshots here that they made very specifically clear that the Garmin update would be coming in Sim Update 3, and that would be the release window for this content. Asobo have realised that the way in which this information had been presented can be a little bit misleading, and so we come to the new changes. So let's take a look at the new version of the snapshots, and I will talk about the changes here as we come to them. So, that all-important Garmin update. Now, this is marked with a status of several releases, which is self-explanatory, and Garmin update, by the way, is now being worked on by a third-party developer, Working Title, who are working in partnership with Asobo and Microsoft. So those guys, very good work they do, are going to be bringing the Garmin changes to the Sim update for us. So the first part of this update is expected to be released with Sim Update 4, with further updates to arrive with Sim Updates 5 and 6. So it's going to be split across 3 different updates. It's also worth pointing out that in a recent Q&A with the devs, Asobo stated that Sim Update 4 and World Update 5 will be combined into a single update. Live weather and wind readings being inaccurate is another thing that was expected to be fixed with Sim Update 3, at least based upon the previous snapshots. However, this has now been clarified as coming across 3 updates. The first part went in with Sim Update 3, the rest will come with Sim Updates 4 and Sim Update 6. Issues with photogrammetry are being brought in with Sim Update 6, and there are plenty of other changes and improvements mentioned on the feedback snapshot, but I'm not going to go through them line by line, and that's simply because my intention here was to highlight how the information is being presented to us, and it is quite an improvement. Now, the VR feedback and the top wish list remain largely unchanged, as does the current roadmap. Now, moving on, I do want to touch on another subject here, which I mentioned right at the beginning of the video. But priority number 3 on the feedback snapshot is the current problems with the Flight Simulator crashing to desktop. Now, this isn't something I've experienced myself, but it does seem to be quite a significant issue for many people. The feedback snapshot is stating that this will be fixed as soon as possible. I don't know whether that means a hotfix or one of the upcoming updates. However, I've not seen much in the way of official communication on this, giving us exact details on what's going on. Further, a significant number of people seem to be having problems with extremely poor performance and low frame rates ever since World Update 3. As of today, there are multiple threads on the official forums with literally hundreds of individual comments pointing out these problems. Some people are saying that they're getting frame rate drops to as low as 12 frames per second, and that can be drops from 30 or even 60 right down to that very low frame rate, which makes the sim very difficult to actually play. In fact, I saw one thread talking about the frame rates dropping down to just 2 frames a second, which is basically a complete slideshow. Now, from what I could tell, the official response on this situation from either Microsoft or Asobo is extremely limited. Currently, the only official information I can find on this is a 6-day-old post from the community team stating that they are aware of the issue and that it is being investigated. Now, there's also the reference on the feedback snapshot, which shows that this is under investigation and will be dealt with as soon as possible. Beyond that, when submitting bug reports, some people have had replies from support requesting that the players make certain changes or otherwise offering some advice. Beyond that, however, there really seems to be very little in terms of official information on exactly what is going on here. Ultimately, this is what's leading to a lot of the questions and uncertainty that is very clear to see on the forums. And on a very much related note, it does feel as though Microsoft Flight Simulator has some problems with world and sim updates, both in terms of negative effects they're having on the sim itself. It's often pointed out that nearly every update causes additional problems, and this is really hard to argue against. Don't get me wrong, the updates themselves are always great, and it's clear that a lot of work and a lot of love goes into them. However, World Update 3 has been no exception with causing further issues, which are just adding to the numerous bugs and problems that have been in the sim since release. That's not to say that things don't get fixed, of course they do. There's plenty of fixes, but there's still a good number of outstanding issues. From the outside, it's impossible to understand or really know why this is. I started this video out with pointing out how open Asobo are when it comes to their development roadmap, and I really do stand by that. However, I also think that we could do with a little more transparency on what might be causing some of these problems. When hundreds of people are commenting on the official forums that they're having significant issues, and that some of these are still present weeks after the update, it feels only reasonable that some further clarification should perhaps be provided. Hopefully, this is something that will be cleared up in the coming days. That then brings us to the end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.